Welcome to my presentation. Today I want to talk about a little bit about the BeAxi software, or rather the experiences we've made with it. So during the last 3 or 4 years, we've been conducting exams at the University of Basel, but also on other universities, other higher educational institutions. And during that time, we realized that there are some common prejudices against e-assessments, and today I want to talk about a little bit those prejudices in order to see or to tell you that we think they're not contemporary anymore. So there are solutions for that, and that's what I'm going to talk about today. So first of all, my name is Daniel. I'm from a rather technical background. I work at the spin-off from the University of Basel, which is named K2 Prime. And my goal for today is to motivate you to conduct more and more electronic assessments, and the focus is rather on tablet-based e-assessments. So on this slide we have a few common prejudices against e-assessments, or the reason why people are against or refrain from doing e-assessments. And before we go into detail of all of those prejudices, or rather challenges, I want to tell a little bit about the BeAxi software itself. So the BeAxi solution is actually an all-in-one iPad solution for e-assessments, and it consists actually of two components. The first is the exam manager, which helps you in creating exam questions, managing them, so managing your own question pool, creating the exams out of those questions, then conducting them on the iPad client, and last but not least, to evaluate the questions and get out statistical information from your exams in order to continuously improve your exam process. And the second component is the iPad client, which I want to go a little bit in more detail. The iPad client is actually what the students or the candidates get to see during the exam. First, let's take it from an examiner's perspective. What I can do on an iPad to conduct exams is, for example, I can just as I'm used to from paper-based exams, I can, for example, display a simple A question. So 5 answers, one of those is true. Yeah, simple A question. But the thing is, and that's where the e-assessment benefit, or one of the e-assessment benefits, comes into play, is I can enrich those questions with media. This could be either images, it could be videos as well. And the interesting thing is that this does not come with an additional cost. So if you compare it to paper-based exams, each time you want to print a image on a sheet of paper, you have to account for the cost when you do that for 100 candidates, let's say. So that's really a beneficial thing here. The other thing is I can take this image, for example, and modify it in a different question type in order to make my exams more creative and ask for different content. So from the viewpoint of an examiner, I have a lot of options here to vary between the different question types, and these are only two question types I've shown now, but the BeAxi solution currently supports over 15 of them. So if you want to get a deeper look in it, just go to the App Store, the iTunes App Store, and you can download the application for free and test it yourself. So probably let's switch and let's look at it from the viewpoint of a candidate. What's interesting here is that I can basically annotate my questions at will. That's the big advantage of a touch screen. I can basically put an invisible layer on each question and do some markings, do some annotations, write some text on it, whatever I want, in order to be not creative, but to state my knowledge and get back to a question and review my notes at any time, basically. So that's one thing. The other thing is we have invented a traffic light system which allows the candidate to give on each questions a certain level of, to indicate the level of certainty, in order also to get back to a question at the end of the exam, for example, to review them. This can be seen on the top bar on the top right, and also there is a quick overview for all questions in the quick jump navigation. So this is really just a quick introduction to what the BeAxi solution is, because I will come back to it a few times during this presentation, and hence it makes sense that you all know what I'm talking about. So now let's really dive in and take a look at some common prejudices, or rather challenges from our point of view, that when it comes to e-assessments. So what I have to say mainly is that this is definitely not a complete list of prejudices we collected over the years, but it's the most common ones recently, really. And yeah, in a way it's fears why the people refrain from doing e-assessments or refrain from doing more e-assessments. For me, it's always a challenge to overcome those fears. So let's take a look at the first prejudice. So people think that when you do, or when you want to conduct e-assessment, that you require any location that you want to do e-assessments in, you require them to have a special infrastructure, and yeah, you have to build large computer rooms with such extensive power outlets and network connections. And yeah, I think that was true for a few years, but I think it should not, and it definitely does not have to be this way today, because yeah, if we take a look at what we have with tablets, it's really the most mobile way of conducting e-assessments. So what we do at the University of Basel, we basically have any lecture room as an assessment room as well, because you have those iPads. They're completely power independent, they're network independent, and that's really a huge plus. You don't have to have any network connection during the exam. You can have it, and due to the backup and security reasons, what we will see in a bit, but you definitely don't need it. And what we do is we have those iPad cards. We can store like 50 devices in it. We can charge them at the same time. We can sync them, do iOS updates and stuff like that. And it really becomes a no-brainer to manage those devices. And yeah, the setup during the exam is also just as easy as with paper. And yeah, as I mentioned, the best of it is you can also conduct exams completely offline, so you don't even have to check whether the room supports the network connection you need to, because if you don't have a network connection, candidates can just continue with the exam without actually even noticing it. So that's that. So there's really no need to have a special infrastructure for rooms. And yeah, let's go to the next. And it says that yeah, you require enormous technical knowledge in order to conduct the assessments. And for me, this is a bit difficult because, as I mentioned in the beginning, I'm a technical guy. So if I tell you as a tech guy that it's easy and you don't need technical knowledge and stuff like that, I think you won't believe me. So I really need to try harder here and put it differently. So what we did is we basically, or what I will do is to really separate the whole exam process in three parts. So the first is before the exam, when it goes to deployment, how to prepare the devices. Then it's during the exam, probably the most important part. What happens if there is an emergency, and afterwards, how about the correction? How is that easy? First of all, the deployment. What we do is we have actually two different deployment mechanisms of how to get the exams onto the devices. The first option is that out of the exam you created in the exam manager, you're going to create a QR code which looks just on the slide like that, and then you go with each device and scan those QR codes, and the device will automatically download the exam for you. So not much work to do there. Of course, if you have 200 devices, you need to capture those or scan the QR code like 200 times, which can be tedious, and that's exactly why we also introduced the second mechanism, which basically where you basically send a command out of the exam manager and tell all the devices you want to download the exam. Like basically you're saying them, well, go download the exam, I give you the location, you do that on your own. So and here this is really a no-brainer. You can send this command to one device, to 10 devices, to 100 devices. You're not really limited there. So what happens during the exam? And here this was a very important point for us to be able to conduct the assessments without any technical person on site. So we have basically this 3R method, we call it, and it's first the restart, then there's the reboot, and there's the restore. So whenever the BeAxi application realizes that there is a problem within the app, it automatically restarts itself. So in terms or from the viewpoint of a candidate, all he or she is going to see is a short flickering, and the app comes up again, and we can continue just where we left off. The second one is if there is a more severe problem, let's say, and we have to reboot the device, we do that by a simple click of two buttons at the same time for a few seconds, and then the iPad is going to restart, the app is going to restart, and the candidate gets back to the question where he just left off. So you lose at max like 1 or 2 minutes of time, and usually this time is added at the end of the exam, so there's not really a big issue. And the third one, which we actually did not ever have to do, is that we really need to restore the device because there is a hardware failure or something like that. So what we do then is we just take a new device, we get the data from the server, which is saved during the exam periodically, and we restore it. The student can continue where he left off as well. So, and this is really things that can be done by any person without any technical background. And that's also how we conduct the assessments at University of Basel at the moment. There is actually no technical person present in the room anymore. We are on emergency standby, of course, but during the exam it's just the same people doing it that were also doing it when we had paper-based exams. So after the exam, the exam manager supports you in correcting the assessment, so that also there you don't need any technical knowledge and can provide easy handling. So first of all, there is of course the single choice, multiple choice questions, basically all those questions which can be corrected at just a click. So you really, it's in German here, I'm sorry for that, but on the top left corner you see the button to calculate the results, and that's really what the application does for you, so no need to correct those manually. Then there are other question types where it's not entirely possible to correct them automatically, and here we provide a support in terms of colors to like for example matching keywords and stuff, so you have a faster correction of the exam itself. And for example for text questions, You also have the possibility to make annotations. You can provide comments to the candidate. You can highlight things, strike things through, stuff like that. So basically what you will be doing in a PDF sort of. You can do that in the exam manager as well, and also and therefore therewith provide a better handling of the correction of the exam. So next prejudice is the e-assessments don't save as much work as they promise to. And yeah, well, I have to admit this is a tough one, and that's why I only have a question mark here. Actually, I wanted to start a discussion here during the presentation. This kind of gets a little hard, so I think I will be the one who has to talk here. So yeah, the problem here is that you usually, from the institutional point of view, you don't really account much for the saved hours, because let's put it another way. For example, as a professor, when I'm doing an exam, probably I'm going to correct it myself, probably my assistants will, but the thing is that they're here anyways, so I'm not really measuring the time they have to correct the exam. And for that, I'm really happy that also Jürgen Handke in his presentation showed the differences they measured when correcting text-based exams. Yeah, there are different studies that tell that it's much easier to read text, machine-written text, in comparison to handwritten text. And I think this is also intuitively clear that this is the case, but it's sometimes hard to put that really in numbers. For our solution, what I can tell you is that of course we've seen that you save time during the correction, you save time during the preparation, because you don't have to copy all those exam sheets. You don't have to, for example, you don't have to create an A and a B version, because what the BeAxi application does for you is basically, if you want to, it randomizes the questions and also the answers for each candidate. So, and this comes for free. Yeah, what you do is, when we prepare the iPads, that usually takes us like 1 or 2 hours for a whole exam week. So it's, yeah, of course it depends on the size of the exam. If you have an exam which is 1 megabyte of size, of course it takes much less time than if it's 50 megabytes or more. But that's around the time we use to prepare a whole exam week. And if you compare that only to the copying of paper-based exams, yeah, that's quite a lot. And something that also comes for free, basically, and this is a little anecdote, not to blame anyone, but in the FHNW, like 2 or 3 years ago, they had some rather hard incident where they accidentally published the solutions together with the exams. And yeah, that's a really, I think that was in the media all over the place. And of course you can avoid shitstorms like that when you just have a solution which basically does most of the work for you. So another thing is security. People think, or tend to think, that e-assessments are just not secure enough yet. And yeah, I have to go in a little more detail here. I think this is also something that is actually threefold. When you're just talking of security, it's just not one big part of security. There's actually the security when you relate it to cheating. Are the candidates able to cheat, and if not, why not? What about the authentication? How can we make sure that the candidates which authenticate at the system are really those who they claim to be? And the third one is, what happens to my data in case of an emergency? We saw that it's possible anytime that the device breaks down. So what happens then? And Yeah, probably let's start with the cheating, which I basically already said in the last slide, is that we can randomize the questions all at will. So we and not only randomize the questions but also the answers. And yeah, that really makes it hard for the candidates to cheat. Another thing is that the iPads are very restricted devices, and that may sound that may bother you in personal life. You may think, yeah, well, the iPad, there is only one connector, and the, the the number of peripheral devices I can attach to it is really limited, and this bothers me. But in an exam situation, this is actually exactly what you want. So you want to make sure that there's no possibility to connect a USB device and copy the whole exam data, and and so on and so on. So for us in the exam situation, it was really the best device because of these restrictions, and this it also allows us to limit the access only to the specific app. So during the exam, the BeAxi application cannot be left, for example, to go into Safari or to go on Facebook and communicate with other people. That can be restricted in a perfect way. So we can be really sure that we minimize the possibility of cheating. In my opinion, if someone wants to cheat, there is always a way to cheat, but these are some technical aspects how we can prevent it. Then we come to authentication. What we do here is that the student basically logs in with its student ID and a signature or a photography of either himself or the student ID or the student card or both. So if there is a need to check for that after the exam, we can still do that. And of course, in the exam itself, the candidates which are eligible to take the exam are registered there. So there's no possibility for a student that is not registered for the exam to actually take it. Nevertheless, we mostly do some manual student ID control during exam still, just as a second mechanism to provide the security in terms of authentication. Then, as soon as the student logged into the exam, I just said that the questions are randomized, which makes it much harder to copy things. And then also, oops, sorry. Then also we have some backup mechanisms during the exam. So first, each iPad has its own local data store where the answers are saved. So even if the network connection fails, we can still continue the exam. And so this is an encrypted storage. So even if someone was able to steal the device or copy data from it, he cannot use the data really because it's in an encrypted form. Furthermore, and this is the live backup, that all changes are communicated to a second server, which means each and every click the student makes on the tablet is communicated to a second server, and also to match those with the remote file backup in the end and see if there are any issues or any things that do not comply. And the third mechanism is the local action protocol, where I can also see how the student answered the exam. So basically, with timestamps, I could basically recreate the exam how the student conducted it. So probably he went to question 2, selected answer 3. Then 5 minutes later, he went back to this question and selected a different answer. These are all things that are in the action protocol and can be evaluated afterwards if necessary. And yeah, after the exam, the content is digitally signed. It's also a very important thing because we need to make sure that the data is not changed by anyone after the exam. So this content is digitally signed, and so also in case of a legal dispute, yeah, we can really make sure that the data has not been changed in any way. And then this is also a hard one, kind of. It's not affordable, of course, mostly in terms of monetary aspects. And what we can say here is that from our experience, we had computer rooms at the University of Basel. We had basically 2 rooms next to each other with a total of, I guess, 40 or 45 PCs, where we also conducted e-assessments. And the thing is, they were also thought of as rooms where the students could do some projects and stuff. And the thing is, we had to realize that these computer rooms are hardly ever used by the students, because they either have their own laptop, they have their own tablet, and yeah, that's really hard. If you have a computer room, 45 computers, you use them twice a year basically during the exam sessions, and other than that it's just empty, so no one's using it. And yeah, this kind of bothers me a lot in general, because I think there are so many computer rooms out there which are only used for the assessments, like once or twice a year, and other than that, yeah, they're just there, but no one really uses them. And we will just see in a bit that this is not only, well, nonsense from an organizational point of view, but also from a monetary cost of view point of view. Sorry. Yeah. So when we talk about our solutions, people often come to us and say, "Yeah, well, now I have to buy a bunch of iPads only to conduct the assessments. Is that really worth it?" And um, here I need to say that no. If you only conduct the assessments with tablets and do nothing more with them, it's, yeah, well, it's also worth it in monetary cost, but still it does not really make sense. So it's, yeah, there are much more applications to be used than just our exam application. You can use that during the lectures. There is a possibility to run Excel, to run Word on it. There is even a Citrix client for the iPad, and moreover, if you want to log in on a Windows machine, on a remote machine for doing something, probably on another application, SPSS or something, there will be even a mouse for a Citrix client. So you could even use a mouse on the iPad in that specific application. And not only that, but you can also provide the scripts on a tablet. The tablets are easy to handle, and yeah, I could talk a lot more about that, but I think I also need to keep time in mind here. Yeah, and the thing is, the question I related to just to buy iPads for the exams only. I think more and more Apple resellers are also adapting to exactly that, and not only sell the iPads, but there is also the possibility to rent them. Like, for example, throughout a few years, to rent them only for a specific time, and this may become much more interesting here. And what's also very interesting is that the iPad itself can actually be a complete desktop replacement. I just said that there's the Citrix viewer with a Citrix mouse in combination. But there is also, just in the BeAxi application, the possibility to attach a headphone, to attach a keyboard, and then basically you can do anything you can do with a computer on it. And we're also conducting e-assessments like that. We have a faculty of law, which is conducting e-assessments with exactly this setup. Yeah, because it's hard always to write text on the software keyboard, and also you lose some kind of space to display the questions. But the external keyboard is really a good solution here. And you may ask, why is it a wired keyboard? And the reason for that is pretty easy. So imagine if you have 200 devices in a room, and you try to connect those with Bluetooth only. This is really a hard endeavor, because if only one device loses the connection to its keyboard, it's literally impossible to reconnect it to that device because there's so many interference from other Bluetooth devices. And so this for us was really the way to go to, yeah, even if it's not the most sophisticated solution to have a wired keyboard from a technical point of view, but it works pretty well. And yeah, what we did in the end is also to really have the cost comparison between those PCs we had, and afterwards also the iPads we decided to buy. And we listed here what we've spent to basically set up the computer rooms. And if we go quickly through that, we have the PCs and monitors, which is around 1,000 francs per combination. So we have a 50,000 francs. Then we need the tables to put them on, of course, like 10,000. We have the deployment infrastructure, so basically to manage the Windows deployment, because we don't want to have to set up each PC individually. So you have to have an infrastructure for that. And there, one of the biggest parts is the air conditioning. If you have 50 computers in a room, that will generate quite some heat. You need an air conditioning for that. And yeah, there are the power outlets and network. And in the end, we went of around 160,000 Swiss francs for that, which is, compared to other computer rooms, yeah, a lot of cheap. But if we compare it to the iPads now, where we have the device plus the keyboard and headphones, which is around 500 francs per device. We have like 25,000 francs for 50 devices. We have this iPad cart, which I've shown in the very beginning, where we store them, around 3,000. And there is also the deployment infrastructure with a Mac and Apple configurator, around 2,000. Apple configurator actually comes for free, so it's really just a Mac. And we have here, since we have, yeah, we can do it in any room, so there's no specific air conditioning we need, because there's no heat generation. I think the only heat generation you would have here is the students, with the nervously sweating students, which will generate some heat. So, but not really as much as a full set of 50 running computers. And yeah, you have the battery lifetime, which is in our case, in the application, more than 6 hours. So there's really no need for a power outlet, except you do very long exams. So in the end, it's around 30,000 francs. And yeah, I think I don't have to explain that this is much less than compared to the PC solution. So if you think that these 30,000 are still a lot of money, which they actually are, there's also the possibility to do exams with bring your own device. And we have institutions that do that actually. So each and every student there has their own iPad. They use it for personal use, but also for to share projects within the lectures, and also to conduct the exams, because you can, in the scenario of the exam, you can lock the iPad. We have a mechanism in the background which controls if the app was left somehow nevertheless, and this could lead to an exclusion. So it's really safe to also do that with bring your own device here. Yeah, and what I did not really mention, good point for us was also that we were able to get ourselves a brand new office in a former computer room, which is, by the way, air conditioned. So I think we're through. That's some of the most common prejudices we have with e-assessments. As I said, this list is definitely not complete. So if you have further points which you think I missed here or are very important, please drop me a note, and we can discuss that after the presentation as well. What I really want to have you as a take-home message is that if we take a look at those prejudices again, we can also state them differently. So what we see now, basically, we can conduct the exams in any location. There is no technical knowledge needed, and hence the iPads or the exams are really easy to handle with the BeAxi application. We can also save much work, even though we have not put that in numbers all at once. We've seen that the exams are secure, and also if we compare it to PC-based exams and also paper-based exams, it's really an affordable way of conducting e-assessments. So thank you for your attention. I hope you liked the presentation. Please drop me a note for feedback and questions, and I'm happy to get in touch. Thanks, and bye-bye.